The Real HD Show is brought to you courtesy of Soundtrack Your Brand. Soundtrack Your Brand and its contractual relationship with ASCAP and BMI allows us to play all music on The Real HD Show, all rights reserved. The Real HD Show does not deserve strikes from copyright algorithms on social media websites because we have permissions. Fair use, fair use. The Real HD Show is also brought to you by 17 USC 106. Fair use. Videos used for educational purposes only. And now, a word from my sponsor. Peace to the family. Happy 2023, because we are recruiting for the Real HD broadcast network, that is. Let's break it down. The broadcast network is coming at you in 2023 with news and awareness, teen culture, music and production, Amazon, college sports, pet show, live music, sneaker show, black anime, and much, much more. Tune in to the Real HD broadcast network. All shows on the Real HD Broadcast Network are in need of hosts, panelists, IT reps, PR reps, social media managers, producers, and metaverse specialists. And if you've ever dreamed of hosting your own show, being a panel on a real interesting show, or anything behind the camera, we got a lineup for you. We got some dynamic things popping in 2023 on the Real HD Broadcast Network, where Afrofuturism becomes reality. Look out for us recruiting at a venue near you. Let's shine on the rest of the 21st century. Do it with the Real HD Broadcast Network. We out. Brother Marcus, what's going on with you, bro?
Hello and good evening.
Peace, bro. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. And yourself?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. You know, who thought it would jump out to 80 today?
Oh my goodness, send it back.
Who drew that up? We supposed to be expecting snow or something up in the rock, you know? What's
Listen,
really
I'd have settled for 65 and we could have called it even.
right? Right. I was all overdressed and all of that, you know? I'm still thinking it's jacket. I'm still thinking it's jacket season out this piece.
It's really crazy. Listen, I don't know who's controlling the weather this week, but I gotta see if I can put in my requisition form to get them to normalize it.
Right. We gotta talk to them people at Harp and see what's really popping.
Exactly.
You know? How's your day? Everything straight? Everything prosperous?
It's going all right. I'm working on making it go better. So no complaints here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And yourself? How about you?
Oh, not bad, man. You know, teaching the babies, and then, you know, I had to do some college stuff with my daughter, and now I'm here on the show, man. So never a dull moment.
There we go.
Yeah, man. So welcome to the Real HD Show. Prime time with a purpose. Don't get nervous. We're going below the epidermis. And we got a visitor that is turning into a regular, Brother Marcus Williams. And like we say on the Real HD Show, there's no echo chambers here. So the reason why I like Brother Marcus on the show is that he gives us a sharp, witty, contrasting, edgy opinion, but always conscious and always on point with poignant things to say. Peace, Brother Marcus. Welcome to the show.
Thank you kindly for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Oh, we got Brother Mozzie on. Yeah,
I'm here, man.
All right.
Yeah, now we cooking with grandma grease. We good now, bro.
Oh, yeah, boy.
Yes, sir.
Up the stove.
We cooking with grandma grease. We right back at it. You know what I mean? So last time we were here on the Real HD Show, Prime Time with a Purpose. Thank you to before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe. We are blasting off to 5 Facebook channels. We're on Prime Time with a Purpose on YouTube. We're on the Real HD Network on Twitch TV. We are on Twitter, and we are on IG, and we are also on iHeartRadio television. So tune in, tell a friend, each one bring one. It is the Real HD Show. And just to give you a little recap of what we did, because we had a nice little session last time on the Real HD Show. We were talking about Co-IntelPRO. And what was interesting about the way we came at it was that not only did we talk about it from the historical context, but we also brought out some interesting, and that's the show headliner for you. And we talked about William O'Neill and his adventures, being a pain in the tuchus for our freedom fighters. And we talked about Michael Adam Weindecker and his insidious nature, dealing with, you know, the protest movement, George Floyd protest movement, and the police protest movements of a couple of years ago. We also talked about April Rogers and her ability to kind of hide in plain sight, disguised herself as a stripper with pink hair and was able to infiltrate and cause all kinds of ruckus, get people arrested and all of the sorts. But what was interesting about what the two of you brought up is you guys brought up some modern ways that Co-IntelPRO has inserted itself into the modern, processes and the nomenclature. And one of the interesting things that we talked about was non-for-profits. Either one of y'all want to relate and catch up the people who's on, that are watching right now? Twitch TV is heavy. Twitter
Well,
is heavy.
nonprofits. The way it worked with nonprofits is, remember, people, whenever you go to a neighborhood organization or something of that nature, and remember all these like neighborhood improvement groups, block clubs, churches, and others. Remember when churches had what was the one where the churches now can take advantage of federal monies?
You talking about after the tax code, after they changed it with Lyndon B. Johnson?
Bush said that. Remember when that facilitated everybody creating schools and charter schools?
Oh yeah.
I forgot what that was called, but faith-based initiative, the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, whenever that stuff took place and you took advantage of that, you had to do what? You had to give up all types of information on yourself. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, of those who created issues in the neighborhood, 9 times out of 10, there was, say, in the neighborhood, there was a neighborhood watch organization we're trying to put together. We're having block clubs sponsored by the neighborhood community group. And what they do is, excuse me, fellas. So what ends up happening is all those things are to create subversively and to say, hey, well, we're trying to keep our neighborhood safe. So if I'm running the block club, which then also runs the Eyes on the Neighborhood Club, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to tell you what family in the neighborhood is causing all the problems. And we don't realize that we're actually putting them into a central database to where when things start happening, there are certain people they automatically go look for because they've already been identified through the neighborhood groups. And you can't say it was the white man, or you can't say that's the ultimate act of white supremacy. Let me create something so it'll allow you to do what I want you to do to your people. And I'll let you do it. And you can't blame me because it's your people that's doing it, but not understanding who the puppet master is.
Brother Marcus, your take.
I got a lot to say about it. I'm not very fond about the way that the how can I say? Okay, the long and short of it is this right here. I don't like that our people like to just give in to greed or give in to whatever it is this week that sounds good to basically sell out their own people. And that just doesn't go necessarily specific for Black people, but I mean all Americans, right? Like at this point, that's where we really are. We've got different government funding for all types of outreach and stuff like that. And if you look at the way that the large portion of it is structured, especially for the nonprofits, it's allegedly supposed to go for initiatives that are to, how can we say, empower the communities, largely the disenfranchised and the disadvantaged communities of Black and brown ethnicities. And if you look at that and you actually go back, like Mazi said, you go back a couple decades and you say, okay, well, where are the receipts for the work that's been done and what has been achieved, right? So it really goes back to what who said it? James Brown said it best, you sold us out for chicken change. And that's where we that's where we are. We've been sold out for scraps, for the preacher to roll up in his nice Land Rover on every Sunday, We've been sold out cheap by the people who we're supposed to lean on and rely on in the community to be leaders. And this is a very sad thing. I bring that up until today. I just saw a whole bunch of our elected, okay, let me not say a whole bunch, it was like 5 of them. 5 of our elected officials today standing out on the steps over by the, wherever they were, talking about good cause eviction, right? Now that sounds like a good idea. And I understand the concept there. But these same people that are supposedly supposed to serve the most underserved and disadvantaged in our community talk nothing about housing programs that will enable people to end up with home ownership and stakeholdership in the communities in which we live in. And yet again, we're falling prey to stuff that sounds good, to people waving a couple of dollars at us, giving us the okadoke. That's where we are. It's sabotage.
21st century COINTELPRO.
Yes,
It's
sir.
tied to memorandum. Was it memorandum 214? I think it is. Help me out with that one, fellas. Okay. And they talk about national security, but also infiltrating and creating organizations that creates a spy network in our community. The biggest and most obvious one under COINTELPRO that we engaged ourselves in is Black Lives Matter. I hope we don't get shut down for saying that, but we got to look at Black Lives Matter for what it was. It was agent provocateur. Create a lot of fervor.
Not just.
It created a lot of people signed up. And what happened to those names?
Where the information go?
Different. Right? It's no different than what happened with the NAACP. How many people in our audience know that the leader of the NAACP when it first started was Joe Spingard? And Joe Spingard was what? Military intelligence. Turned over 35,000 names to the government to keep an eye on these particular folks because they might create problems in the community. But what's even funnier is they give out an award in his name, the Joel Spingard Award. Now, I understand in the 60s, 70s, 80s, we really didn't understand. But in the 90s, something called Freedom of Information Act came about. And so this information started flooding the streets. Did we go back and change? See, we can talk about COINTELPRO, but Negroes are still going to go out there and engage themselves in things just to say they're part of something. Black Lives Matter, when it first started, didn't give two craps about Black lives. They were pushing a same junk. There we go.
That's just not the same.
Trained Marxists, but more importantly, they were pushing an anti-family agenda.
Anti-family, anti-man,
the slogan.
Pro-alphabet.
There you go. That's anti-family. All you got to do is talk about Black Lives Matter. And Black Lives Matter didn't even come from them.
Nope.
Because remember, before there was the organization of Black Lives Matter, there was the slogan, Black Lives Matter too. Shorten it up. It gets co-opted. There's your agent provocateurs. What do? Got folks running around the country, protesting all over the place, getting paid. So when we talk about COINTELPRO, we have to understand that it's much deeper than just spying on us. You know, there are programs that are taking place under COINTELPRO that continues to destabilize Black and brown communities. And that's the important part that we have to understand. Go ahead.
All right, so let's get right to it, man, because you brought up a lot. And I think one of the main things that we need to talk about as far as the not-for-profit programming that destroyed Black communities. Let's get right to it. You brothers, you are two intelligent brothers. So let's get right into it. Here's a study that was pivotal to last century. Ignored by some, called racist by others, called sexist by others. But nonetheless, it was social programming meant to devalue and defamilyize. You like my new word, defamilyize? Defamilyize.
I can work with it.
The community.
You ain't about to throw our boy Moynihan up there, are you?
Oh, yes, we are. We about to go there right now. Buckle up. Buckle up, Buttercup. Here we come.
The
Kerner Commission, Moynihan report. So, Brother Marcus, are you familiar with Moynihan scissors?
Very lightly.
Okay. Moynihan scissors was a dynamic that Moynihan came across in his study of the Black and Latino community and the programs that were being put in place in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and the 70s that was meant to empower Black men, put Black men to work, do different things like that. Similar to the 3 R's with Roosevelt, but it was meant for brothers. So while this thing was happening, what he noticed was, what Moynihan noticed was, and also, I'm sorry, let me not skip too much ahead. So they were trying to find a way to get a lot of Black people off of welfare, of course, because of course that was the thing. No more welfare queens, no more welfare, blah, 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 blah. Claudine, all of that, right? So affirmative action starts coming into play, all these different social programs to get Black men working come into play. But Moynihan noticed something over maybe a 10-year period. He noticed that despite the rise in vocation for Black men, the ability for Black women to apply for welfare didn't decrease. It continued. So there you have a divergence in population and a divergence in culture. And why is that? You would figure if a Black man is at work, then there's no reason for a Black woman to get welfare. But it stayed the same, if not rose more, over a particular period between the 50s and the 70s. Maybe you could be more direct with me. I haven't read the report in a while. I'm just kind of freelancing off my understanding of it. So they called that divergence in Black families Moynihan scissors, because you weren't supposed to see those welfare rates continue once Black men were working at a consistent pace. And what that particularly did was kept women and children in government offices giving up their personal, vital, and volunteering their information and their family information for, like you said, chicken change. And then, of course, the removal of the man out of the house continued until it became a household culture. You brothers' thoughts on the Moynihan report being describing, if you will, a systematic Co-IntelPRO of the welfare system that imposed itself on the Black community and left a shadow for decades to come. Your thoughts?
So, I mean, you can go ahead first. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, that's what we got to understand is that because around the time of the Moynihan report, we had already had Co-IntelPRO was still in full effect. Technically, it was on its way down and out, but that was not the case. It was doing what Neely Fuller always talks about. It was always evolving. He said white supremacy is always evolving, and we have to understand that. And so that's what was taking place, was that it was evolving, and we didn't get it because we saw opportunity. And that opportunity was, I can feed my family. But if he's working, why do you need to feed your family? And then you come up with these levels of which you say what poverty should be or shouldn't be. So you got a guy working, you know he's underemployed, and you know he's not going to raise that. He got 3 or 4 kids at home, wife at home. He's going to be under the poverty line. So now you're going to go in there to get some assistance, aid to dependent families, TANF, and some of the other ones that are out there. And so what started happening was, once again, you got to give up your information in order to do so. She now has to be the snitch network. You know, when we talk about no snitching, here's the uncomfortable truth. Sisters were the first snitches in the neighborhood. If they wanted to be fed.
Wow.
And it's not me passing judgment. It's you got to take care and feed your family. So in doing so, you got to do what you got to do. But it's the type of things that were created in us that put us out there to where we always were able to kind of be perfect participants in Co-IntelPRO.
So let me just read it. The Moynihan Report was released in 1968 after 7 months of investigation. It attributed to the riots the lack of economic opportunity for African Americans and Latinos, failed social service programs, police brutality, racism, and the orientation of national media to white perspectives. A bestseller once it became a book. It was a presidential report before it became a famous literary work.
Is that the same thing?
Say it again.
Is that the same thing that came from the Kerner Commission?
Yes, sir.
Or is it just
similar?
Okay. Then I know better.
But hold on. Here's the interesting part, brother. Why did Moynihan say the things that he said about black families in terms of economics and them having to feel they need to do things for us?
Tell us why, bro.
Because he said that black and brown people are like children. Mentally, psychologically, that they are like perpetual children. And they'll never be able to take care of themselves. And that's important, people, because they got to understand that's when the Democratic Party took on that level of ultra liberalism. And what happened under most the liberalism that we live under today? A lot of craziness. So I'm sorry for all you liberal Democrats out there that's listening. That's been one of the worst things that ever happened to us as a people. But understand, Moynihan said that we are perpetual children. In other words, we could never rise above the state of childhood. So they unfortunately are going to always have to take care of us.
Right.
You know, the crazy thing about that is the commission also said that a large part of the issues were coming from the media, were based on perspectives and how it was largely framed from white perspectives. So it's interesting at how this report in and of itself was framed from white perspectives. So they're shooting outside my house, so that's fun. Just another day in the neighborhood.
Hey, don't forget the truck.
No, right? Crazy. Crazy. We were just talking about how it was hot earlier. See what happens when it gets a little warm?
Oh my gosh, that's awful. That's awful.
Jump in the bathtub.
Oh my goodness. That's right. Jump in the bathtub. Anyway, so long story short on that is, if we look at these different types of reports, these commissions and stuff like that, they were largely facilitated by white people, but not just white people, right? We're talking about more so elitist level whites. We're not talking about whites from poverty. We're not talking about whites that grew up with nothing. We're talking about politically aligned or affiliated individuals, largely, that are crafting these things. So it's interesting. This report comes from the commission, which was reporting to Lyndon B. Johnson, one of the most racist presidents that we've had in the history of the universe. Okay, very openly racist. I did a essay, pretty long essay on him, and some good research. He was a fantastic politician. but racist as the day is long. And I tell you what, he did everything that he could to disadvantage us. And I'm sure that that had a lot to do with not actually adopting some of the findings of the report, and that legitimately not too long after the report was issued, Martin Luther King was killed, and then all of these other riots popped off. And then it's funny, but it's not funny, right?
But remember, when was most of our civil rights legislation passed? Under whose administration?
Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay. So it makes you really ask, was it for us or was it not for us? Was it used to really usurp our power as a community, as a stronghold? And what would you call it? Dilute the power of the actual Black and Latinos. And that's really honestly what it was. We look at it now like, oh, these were great things. These were great things. They very well could have started off as great things, but upon their implementation, the way in which they went about what they said was so great for us was not. We see that specifically directly today, as Mazi was mentioning, in the liberalist attitude that continues to be perpetuated by the Democratic Party. It's unfortunate, but if you look at all of the policies, everything that they're pushing that sounds good is bad for us. Like I said a couple moments ago about them pushing today, they were all about good cause eviction, but where is the promotion of home ownership? So it's all of the stuff that they promote and tell us is good for us is a lie. And we need to very much so be how can we say, aware and look at it with suspicion. Honestly, it's how do they say, it's the op. That's what it is, really. It's being pushed against us continuously, and our people unfortunately are giving in and feeding into it. You see all of these organizations, back to the mention of nonprofits and community organizations, you see them popping up everywhere, and all of them seem to be some sort of a red organization, right? A communist socialist organization that's telling us that, oh, they're fighting for us. They're fighting for people that are disadvantaged. They're fighting for Blacks. They're fighting for Latinxes. Who the hell is a Latinx? So nobody in the community want to be called Latinx or Latinx, as they say, right? Like it goes to show you that the people that are pushing these things are completely disconnected from the actual individuals on the ground, and they're selling you false bill of sale. Don't buy it. That's what I got.
Mozzie, you wanted to say something in response?
Man, I thought 4 or 5 other things popped in my head, so I'm lost on what was the original piece that I was going to say. But I was going to say, here's something that our audience need to study. Hegelian dialect. I love it.
Yes. Yes.
So when we go about doing some of the things that we do, keep that in the back of your mind. Hegelian dialectic. That's very important, people.
Break that down really quick.
Hegelian dialectic is basically we create a problem knowing that we already have the solution.
Yep.
Kerner Commission. Yep. Moynihan. These were Hegelian dialectics because they knew what they were going. They had the solution for us of what they were going to do, and it was so you can create whatever conditions and situations you like, and you push people into whatever you want to push them into because we got the solution.
And the solution is never to our advantage. A lot of, speaking of what you're talking about with the Hegelian dialect, a lot of the stuff that we see now is, and I'd encourage people while they're looking that up, is take a chance and read the book. There's a couple of good books, but the book 1984, right? Like that's a very, very good book about how the government is able to manipulate thought and media and different things like that. And in that, you have concepts like doublethink or doublespeak. And doublethink is the acceptance of two contrary beliefs, like at the same time. So, which it's a way of political indoctrination. So, like, peace is war is peace. You know what I'm saying? Freedom is slavery, stuff like that. And we see more and more of that incepted in everything that we see on a daily basis. It's very concerning because a lot of people don't realize how deep the stuff runs, like you were saying, Mazi. A lot of this has become so prevalent in our society on a daily basis that we don't even think about it. We don't even think about it. And to your point about the Hegelian dialect, like, we just had a couple years ago, we had them do a study, and it was like $30 million study over multiple years of why poor people are poor in Rochester. I said, you know what? I said, I wish I would have got some of that money. We all could have told them why poor people are poor in like one paragraph. But that's kind of how they work. That's kind of how they work. They try to make the larger part of it, Mazi, I guess, is to your point. A lot of this is a money laundering scheme, right? And it's a way to fleece the money from the people. That's what I got.
All right. So just in case you're joining, we're about a half hour into the show. And the rhythm and the pace and the theme of the show is Modern Co-IntelPRO Part 2. You got your jersey yet? Meaning, are you down yet? Have you got your Co-IntelPRO jersey? Do you understand how you're contributing to the degradation of what we're living in right now? And we just got finished talking about this right here. Kerner Commission and the Moynihan Report, and how our people participated in systematically setting up our own genocide that lasted years and decades later. We are living the legacy of that. And of course, in the last 3 years online, well, I won't skip. I won't jump the gun. But context is king. Context is king, and we have seen Co-IntelPRO, but on a different level. And way back in the day, before they fought a thing called the Civil War, we had something called meritorious manumissions. How America developed a culture of snitching and pro-establishment, a pro-Negro establishment. Of course, that's where you get the, archetype of the house Negro and the field Negro, and what the two of them did, and how they were, classified. And you could see it still in the inner works of what's happening today. What do you guys think of meritorious manumissions act as the precursor for Co-IntelPRO? Just to kind of give our audience a backdrop.
Go ahead, Miles.
Well, what it did was, it put certain rules in place that we now continue. It was at that time, it was the Brave New World. No, I shouldn't say the Brave New World. It was 1984 in effect, because what it was engaged in was the technology of control of the time, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And even at the time, even whites were under that same system, that same thumb of meritorious manumissions, especially if you weren't of the plantation ownership class, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you had to be the overseer, or you had to be the little dirty redneck running around snitching, hiding by the tree, watching what folks did. That was kind of the insurance policy. This is also how the what do they call them? The night the posse that rounded up the slaves that ran away. Well, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name.
I know what you're talking.
The deputized rednecks that hunted down slaves that left the plantation, that fled, and they would round them up, and they were the precursor to actual police officers.
The slave patrols.
Slave patrol. There you go. Slave patrol. So this in effect disenfranchised most people during that time period, because you were, whether you liked it or not, if you weren't in the elite class, you were made to work. And part of your work was to perpetuate a system that not only snitched on the black people that were enslaved, but also snitched on the white people if you decided to help black people that were enslaved. And then you better do this bidding. You better be the overseer I need you to be. Or we got systems on systems on systems that will snitch on you as well. So meritorious manumissions around since 1710 successfully curbed the Stono Rebellion, the Bacon Rebellion, all those rebellions that had the opportunity to be game changers in the slavery plantation era, the antebellum South, if you will, were thwarted because of things like meritorious manumissions. What say you guys? What do we think about the legacy of meritorious manumissions? What do you think, Marcus? We heard Mozzie already.
I think that all right, so here's what we got, right? Let's bring it into context today, right? So we were talking about counterintelligence. And if you've been paying attention, which you might not have, you might have missed this. This might have flown under the radar. So you've got the FBI saying now, if your neighbors are too prepared, whatever that means, right, that you need to turn in your neighbors. Remember during the COVID situation, they were like, oh, if your people have too many people over to their house, you need to turn in your people. And people were doing it. People were doing it. It's absolutely insane. And for what, right? Like, they weren't even getting any money off of that. Like, so now the question goes is why, right? And again, it's worse than chicken chain, because now they're not getting paid at all. Now they've created, and I guess this goes back to that, right? It goes directly back to it, where they've created this environment in which people believe that that is a duty, almost. Like that is a responsibility, something that they're supposed to do moving forward, because I guess you would say it's for the greater good, as they like to say. We've seen the same thing recently with the subversion of the Catholic Church and Orthodox churches by the FBI as well. So they're like, oh, we're going to go into these organizations and we're going to plant people in them because they might be radicals. You mean the people in the Catholic Church and the people in the Orthodox Church might be radical? Are you serious? Like, listen at who you're talking about. So really what we get is that's the government. Okay, going back to what you were talking about, the rebellions and stuff like that. That's the government trying to quash anybody that might even get the concept of an idea that what the government is doing is wrong, and might have the will or the conceptual nature ingrained in them from their own personal principles or philosophies that something might need to be done about what's going on. And they're trying to prevent that and usurp that from the get-go to make it so it doesn't even ever happen. And this is really the largest counterintelligence operation we saw in recent time was January 6th and QAnon. Okay, that's what that whole nonsense was. And this is where we are now. This is exactly where we are now. They are doing everything they can because they know that the government is clasping down on individuals and people are starting to feel some sort of type of way. So they're doing everything that they can to plant people in different organizations, to put them inside of churches, to to infiltrate them into neighborhoods and communities through community works projects and stuff like that, so that they can start picking off people that might possibly be individuals that might speak out, say something, or lead something to prevent what the government is doing to the individuals. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, man. So go ahead.
Meritorious manumission and Co-IntelPRO and Kerner report, the Moynihan report, today's most special Negroes who are part of the Republican Party, in particular, your Candace Owens of the world. They severely suffer from one, meritorious manumission, because remember, manumission is a form of process by which slave owners was to give their slaves legal freedom. And they used that promise of manumission to ensure the slaves what? Obedience. And also rewarded the faithful servitude with manumission. So that's when the house slave and the field slave and all that stuff started going on. But more importantly, think about some of the people we have out there today and these organizations that think they're doing great work, and individuals who feel like, through their faithful servitude of aligning themselves with certain individuals, will give them certain freedoms and special Negro status where they don't have to deal with what the rest of us are dealing with, but not understanding that under Co-IntelPRO, that's perfectly what you need, because you need an agent provocateur. And a lot of them, and I'm just using Candace Owens as an example, she is an agent provocateur because she blatantly tell lies.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of recently just did some crazy stuff with the disabled population and kind of put a foot in her mouth, and then had to retract because she didn't realize that what she was saying was going against a special, I guess, garment that would help disabled people increase blood circulation and do different things for them. Now, whether you care for the way that particular garment was modeled or not, that's up to your particular taste. But if you're going to go out and talk about disabled people and what disabled people have and what they don't have, what they like and what they don't like, what they deserve and what they don't deserve, and how they should purport themselves in society based on their ailment or their disability or their handicap, now you're teetering on some extra stuff. But I wanted to move along to the Jim Crow era and how Co-IntelPRO or meritorious manumissions metastasized itself and became so bombastic, became such a process of community. Of course, you got the nativism and McCarthyism, and all of those things made people snitch on one another based on, you didn't like Germans? Oh, okay, we're gonna call you anti-nationalist. And if you don't like Russians or communists, call you a anti-nationalist. But then,
and if you are a black nationalist,
right,
you get the talented 10th who calls you all types of names.
Oh, you go
out.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
I'm about to jump into that.
Rewind.
I'm just gonna point this out before we jump into it. I'm gonna say that I would love to get back to that conversation about Candace. I'm not the biggest fan, but I do have questions, comments, and concerns. But that's another statement. But I wanted to point out what you said. Okay, McCarthy, he was right about everything. He was absolutely right about the Reds and the socialists invading all of our society, invading our institutions of education, invading the media, and invading our government and all of these other different things, because that's exactly what they're doing now, and they're selling it everywhere that we can see, and they have done exactly everything that McCarthy said that they were going to do. And that's where we are. Go ahead.
Question.
Yes.
So is socialism an economic system or a political system?
Socialism is neither. Socialism is a philosophy that opens the door for communism. Now we've got this whole concept.
Question. So is communism a political system or an economic system?
It's both. It's where and this is where I wanted to. I need this needs to be the differentiation for that to answer your question better. You asked the first time. So now they've been trying to preach socialism as a form of government and a economic form. Basically, the concept between the difference between socialism and communism as a form of government right now is this right here. In socialism, you can own private property, but the government still controls everything and can come seize your private property at any given time. In communism, the government owns everything all the time. That is the only big difference between the two as far as forms of government. With the communism, it's complete and total control, and you always end up with these people.
What is totalitarianism then?
Communism leans to totalitarianism. Okay, does it lead
to totalitarianism? Does it lean that way via economics or politics or both?
Both. Because it's policies, right? It's economic policies. It's restriction of people's ability to basically provide and do for themselves, and therefore they are relying on the government for everything.
Real quick.
Why is socialism?
Real quick. Jamie Solomon joining us on Facebook says he loves Candace Owens' vision on the Democratic Party. Very interesting. Say more on the
Democratic Party full of garbage.
Say more in the chat about that, bro. Say more in the chat. I'll put it up. Go ahead, Mazi.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that typically what you get when you study the 4 stages of economic growth, and I think that's a part that we're missing. When you study the stages of economic growth, there's a natural outgrowth and sort of kind of like a failure of capitalism, to where the natural result of that failure or that success of capitalism is socialism. Because under socialism, though that 1% still controls everything that goes on, but now they use the state to conserve what it is that they have going on. But it's super exploited under capitalism. Therefore, in order for you to not lose what you have, you create another state. And what we got right now going on in America is the 1% that controls everything.
Yep.
So it's only natural that you're moving towards a state where there have to be some controls in. And most people, let's use Bill Gates, for example, he's looking to control what happens in the society. He's not doing that through capitalism. He's doing that by subversive movements and promotions of socialism, because he knows through socialism, you make certain things part of the state that you control. And so therefore, you get that conservation going on so we don't destroy ourselves. So is socialism all that bad? I'm not here to give it a value judgment. I'm saying we have to understand these things and how they are and how they come about. Right now, socialism and Marxism is the big boogeyman. But the reality is this: we got 1% of people that own like 90% of the wealth. How come show me a way under capitalism that you can create equity and parity?
No such thing as equity.
Okay. Therefore, you're talking about other systems that individuals seek to use to try to at least level the playing field just a little bit.
It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie.
Well, it's not about the engaging in the argument about, because what happens a lot of times under socialism and Marxism, we then get into the arguments that falls on the line along the 2-party system we have in America. And that's the unfortunate part. We don't discuss those on the merits of what they are. And we don't look at it historically and what it meant. And why is it that a lot of our Black and brown folks sought out Marxism? Why is that?
Because they're stupid.
No, It wasn't
because
that they
they're
were
ignorant.
stupid.
They're aggressively ignorant. They've been taught to be so, and they feel as though somebody owes them something.
So you
This is the
think
difference between
W.E.B. Du
W.E.B. Du
Bois?
Bois.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
This is the
You
difference
think
between W.E.B.
W.E.B.
Du
Du
Bois
Bois
and Booker
was
T.
an
Washington.
idiot?
All right, hold up, fellas. We got to go
I
one at a time.
think that he was one of the greatest
Mark,
counterintelligence operative of the history in Black society in America.
hey, we got to go one at a time because if we don't, it comes out sounding like chicken scratch and nobody gets heard.
Okay.
So make sure we go one at a time. Make sure the other person speaks.
See, here's what we got to do.
Make sure you at home speak.
Yes, we would love that.
Speak with your fingers and let us know that you riding with us and you messing with us and you into our conversation. So go ahead, finish your point, Marcus, because I think we gotta on the
let me read. We got somebody said something. Okay, let me reiterate what Mozzie said. Okay, so Mozzie said was W.E.B. Du Bois because he was a known Marxist that pushed all types of Marxism on the Black community. Was he an idiot? No. Well, sort of, right? Like he was a useful tool. He was counterintelligence. Okay, that's what he was. He was a way to subjugate the Black people as we were expanding and doing for ourselves. Okay, like Booker T. Washington, Benjamin Banneker, and all the other people that we could list. And what he promoted was that, oh, we're done so unjustly. We need the white people to do for us because we're not able to provide for ourselves. When the difference was between him and Booker T. Washington is Booker T. Washington said we can do for ourselves. We do for ourselves, and we should do more for ourselves and then come to the table with what we can do and have a discussion like that. So, yeah, he was full of malarkey and a half. He was original counterintelligence piece of garbage.
all right, I gotta
anyway.
Let's read the comment from the listener. Jamie says, expose the whole emotional connection between Dems and Blacks relationship, I guess, with BLM was used to make a joke out of political education people on how system under the two-party system. It's a joke, but people are scared of natives' identity. One more quote from him. It's subscribing to a national identity and not this race. I did it. He needed to give colonized people no Paul Taylorship over lives, land, or resources. Yeah, all right. So that's the comments by Jamie. Thanks for popping in, bro. We appreciate your comments. Mozzie, did you have a retort? Because I wanted to jump into another point on the matriculation of Co-IntelPRO over the centuries. Go ahead.
One, I want to say that Du Bois is probably one of the great African minds that we've ever had. Unfortunately, he was a tragic mulatto. But if you are a student of Du Bois, he was the same as Malcolm. He was ever evolving and ever changing. And he knew in the latter third of his life that he was a pawn in the game and that he got played. That's why he left America. And if you read his latter writings, he understood the game. Sometimes when you're born in it and you're in the middle of it and you can't see until you're out of it. So through some of his frustrations and as he continued to learn and evolve, he understood what the gig was. And for him, the gig was up. And that's why he spent the latter years of his life outside the USA until he passed. And what we got to be careful of is when we start talking about this, we have to give historical context sometimes. And we just got to actually put it in context in general. And so when we talk about, for example, our discussion on socialism right now, we have to put it in context. When we talk about a number of these things, we got to keep giving context. And sometimes the context we have to give is that within a historical perspective, so we can understand where it's at today, because that's what the matrix is. The matrix is the control of the end result of the data. And we never look at what the input that's taking place. And we have to look at the input, because you can take a piece of that data out of that input and get something totally different. So we just have to be careful about that when we talk about this stuff.
Yeah, man, you mentioned something very interesting, and it took me back to so you guys, I mentioned nativism and I mentioned McCarthyism, and then the conversation snowballed into socialism, which it should. And I've always been of the ilk that racism is nothing but a socialism of sorts, and done no prouder and shown very, very clearly during the Jim Crow era, where you have this happen. Scottsboro Boys.
Mm.
And I don't know if anybody knows the story about the Scottsboro Boys, but they were porters or workers on a train, during the rail system, when the rail systems first came into fruition, and they finally got them up and running. And these are 7 young men that decided they're going to try to look for work, and they got on the trains. And because the same poor white trash that we talked about during our conversation on meritorious manumissions, they couldn't get the work that the young brothers got. They decided to do their own version of a Co-IntelPRO, create some counter programming, if you will, and blame the young men for raping or, molesting the 2 young white ladies that were on train, and then spent the next 30 years of their lives paying for it. So it's very, very interesting how nativism, racism, McCarthyism can dominate the thoughts of the underclass, if you will, the undergirding of what America is, romance them into these kind of polar ways of thinking, while the systems and the programming continues to persist. Same way we had April Rogers try to romance those people during the protests into buying guns and shooting guns and committing atrocities. What say you guys about the Scottsboro Boys, the effect of the socialism of racism, the socialism of McCarthyism, and then the socialism of nativism? That kind of was the precursor to McCarthyism, but I don't want to get too nerdy about it right now. Go ahead, bro. What do y'all think about that? Scottsboro Boys, to the point where now it's believe all women after the whole Me Too piece. So you see where that eventually transitions into in the 21st century. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Mazi.
I like how you keep having me go first, but basically, it's part and parcel to what has taken place. One thing that we got to understand under McCarthyism, socialism, all that, there still is a white ethos that engages in 2 things: technology of control, and they not only control the masses of people who look like us, but also their own kind. And then there's the other thing that takes place constantly is this psychosexual maladaptation that takes place. And what I mean by that is there always seems to be something psychologically and some in sex. It's like they always go there. That's the calling card. And so what happens is, okay, Jamie, I feel you. You're right. And so we have to understand that, because even when you talk about the Me Too movement, for example, that is still based around some of the psychosexual deviancy that has taken place among white people. But it's amazing how in that process, people don't understand within that paradigm. What took place was white women became the poster child for the Me Too movement. And that's the COINTEL program in general, is to throw the okie doke at us at all times so that we always seem to never know if we're coming or going or what's really taking place, and wondering why certain things are happening to us because people are snitching. Programs that we thought or things that we thought were specifically for us, because if people don't know, the Me Too movement was started by Black women, not by white women in Hollywood. And so how these things constantly get co-opted and flipped upside down.
Well, you know, they got to speak for us, right? And that's really what happens with all of these different types of movements. We see the subversion ends up going on, just like Mazi was saying. It ends up being the white people who, and I hate to say it like this, but this is the way that it really is. It ends up being the white people trying to tell our story and speak up for us, allegedly, and then they co-opt everything for themselves, even if it's just down to simply what they say should be done for us is less so serving us and more so serving them. With these, back to the pseudo-sexual nature in which Mazi was mentioning, a lot of that is used in all of these different subversion tactics to bring more emotion, right? Because they know that when people get more emotional, that they're easier to manipulate. They're easier to spur to action and get them to go one way or another. And that's really a large part of the deception tactics that are implemented. And we see it across all of these things. That's a very, very, very serious issue. We also see, right, I was just, yep. We also see things, you look at, what's the man's name? Oh my goodness. Oh my God, I can't remember his name. What's the guy they beat to death, dragged behind the car? That they said has that they said it looked at the white woman. What's his name? They beat the dude. They beat the dude so bad that
What era?
That
it's happened a lot.
No, right? Yeah, right. I know, right? All Emmett Till. There we go.
That's who I thought you were talking about. But I'm
yep,
like,
yep. Emmett Till.
It's happened so much. You gotta speak.
I know though, right? And we laugh, but it's not funny. You know, you got to laugh to keep from crying.
Right.
And we see stuff like that, malicious lies that are being told, and largely it impacts our men. Can I say that again, just so that it settles? The lies largely impact Black men.
Let me throw this at you real quick. Boom.
Oh yeah. There she go.
Now you talked about the psychosexual involvement or cosplay. Let me set it up like this. Do you think this woman here will go down as probably one of the most legendary cosplay Co-IntelPRO specialists of the last century? What do you guys think?
Yep. I mean, you just call it like it is. Yep.
Yeah.
And created such a fervor and created such a uptick and an uproar. 50 years later, you got Beyonce making videos praising her. Very interesting. I can see. But we got a comment right here. Handouts are unnecessary if given the opportunity to govern, own land and property. And overtaking and over-involving themselves in spaces, knowingly disrespecting the community of people of color. Keep the comments coming, folks. Keep the comments coming. We like it. We are the Real HD Show. We're trying to have a higher discussion tonight about modern Co-IntelPRO.
He's right though.
And we jumped into the rabbit hole that is the Kerner Commission and the Moynihan Report, and the inept nature of what our people involved themselves in. And if they were to receive the benefits that came with the welfare state, what they were going to have to voluntarily give up, which basically was the future of our people, which is very, 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 very true, and no more poignant than when during the Combahee River Collective, us getting involved with jokers like this one here on the far left, Gloria Steinem, and her deception and working with our sisters and convincing them one more again that they don't need men, that they are independent and strong women and they can do it all on their own. And that's been disproven, right, left, up and down, sideways, inside and outside. What do you guys think of Gloria Steinem and her impact on the gender war of sorts that we've been having over the last 4 or 5 years in social media? Let's jump right into that.
If there ever was the case for somebody needing to be aborted, she was it. She needed to be stopped before she was born. That's how bad she is. And
Wow.
I don't say that I don't say that lightly because I'm aggressively pro-life. But I mean, if somebody could have went and pushed her mama down the stairs before she gave birth, I'm just saying the world would be a better place. That's how horrible she's had an impact. She's one of the major reasons in the neo-feminist movements that have really destroyed not only the Black family and femininity, but they've destroyed women as a whole and have led up to this abomination of this androgyny agenda, which has been pushed through the alphabet people and is now this trans movement, so-called. It's been the continued attack on the family, and I don't want to say societal norms, but I want to say familial stability, right? Like, that's probably a better way to put it. Her super hyper women don't need a man thing, it really came from a lot of white women in upper crust society that really didn't have, that were mad at white men, right? Like, this is what women do. Sometimes women get, excuse the language, women get bitchy, right? So they want to try to throw up some sort of a way to say, oh, well, I'm going to lash out or whatever. So people like her took advantage of that, and they said, oh, well, here's a way in which I can go in and I can usurp all of these other people and not only popularize myself, but start a destabilization movement that will honestly destroy societal norms for the Black community for generations to come. Because again, this is a person who hates Black babies. This is a person who is very pro-abortion. This is a person who is all about that so-called sexual liberation and sexual freedom and promiscuity, which has destroyed our culture. I got a lot to say about her, and ain't not one word of it any good. I really got some choice words, but I don't know if that's all right to be on the air to talk about, because they're all real colorful. I wish she something explicit deleted. That's how I really feel. Go ahead, Miles.
So they had the book, They Were Her Property Too. And it's kind of a revealing epic of how white women were just as responsible for slave ownership as any white men were. As a matter of fact, the founding fathers, a lot of them married widows, because you remember men didn't really, live that long during the colonial period. It was hard labor, hard work. Mm-hmm. Folks died. And a lot of the folks that became the founding fathers married widows and got the wealth through wealth transfer in that regard. But let's fast forward. Brother Mozzie, let me throw something at you, man. In mentioning her property too, we never think that the evil extends to white women being involved in the Co-IntelPRO business, as they say. And now we got proof that nobody really talks about in large part with this one here. So you have William O'Neill rabble rousing the Panthers, and then you almost a decade later, or maybe 5 years later, you had this one putting extra Kool-Aid, putting extra sugar in the Kool-Aid. What do you think?
We got to know that homegirl was a student of Margaret Sanger.
Facts.
And that she was a true eugenicist. And the movement of white feminism grew out of the eugenics movement, not out of some power play for white men and white women, because the reality is this: when a white man passed away, like during slavery, what happened? The women inherited his slaves. So she was now the slave owner. And history shows, it's not Mozzie making this up, that the white women were more aggressive, more diabolical, and more violent than the men were.
If you don't think so, go check out any movie, biography, book on Mae West.
Yes.
She used her sexuality to lure men in to violence. Very interesting. Check it out. But go ahead, Marcus.
I just wanted to comment on what Mozzie was saying, and then let him continue. I heard this joke before, and this guy, this white dude, was telling this joke about how the country was founded, and some of the really diabolical stuff that was done. He said, and what you can tell the difference between men and women when it comes to warfare and stuff like that is because men will kill a whole village and then throw the people in the river. He said, but nobody could come up with an idea of giving some poison blankets infested with disease to Indians except women. He said that is a type of tactic that would be developed by women. And the fact is that type of stuff, that level of ingenious devilry is largely implemented by them. And we see it in what they do to each other. Go ahead, Mozzie.
One of the things we have to understand is that when we talk about the breakdown of the family, why do we want the breakdown of the family? Because it suits the eugenicists who don't want us here to begin with, who want to see us not alive. So the feminist movement promoted a couple of things. It promoted anti-Black misandry, and it also promoted same-gender lifestyles. It also promoted wild promiscuity, which brought on things like GRID. If people don't know what that is, look it up. There was a thing out there called GRID before there was a thing called AIDS. It was gay-related immune deficiency. This had nothing to do with Robert Gallo and those guys. It's something totally different. And what that was to help bring about and keep moving along the depopulation policies of Black people, and got them thinking that, oh, we free now. The sisters are saying we free. I can do what I want to do. I'm my own person. You ain't my daddy. So we got all that kind of craziness going on, and I don't need a man. What a man gonna do for me? And what happens? Go to school, girl. You don't need to be getting girl. And most college educated women ain't got no man or don't have no children. And then ones that do, they don't have children to women have what they call their fecundancy years, in which they're perfectly right to have children and spring back into their, the shape they had before then, and better be able to carry a child. So what ends up happening is they move it out to later. Most people who have kids with special needs were older women. It ain't a lot of these young women. It's these older women because they were so busy caught up into the movement and they almost forgot about having a family. So these things, Co-IntelPRO is to keep us in check, to also put us in situations where we are engaging in a lifestyle, ideologies, paradigms that are anti-family, anti-black and brown, and ultimately it will deal with the, as Gunnar Myrdal always says, the problem of the Negro in modern democracy.
So, bless up.
That's 100%.
Bless up to you. You're absolutely right, Brother Mozzie, but let's fast forward because we're almost at the end, and I want to get to the modern version of what this may look like. How much does social media reflect a modern day Co-IntelPRO? Are we telling on ourselves? Have we been trained? Have we been processed to the point where we use social media in that regard as well?
How many times do we see the brother who know he done, you ain't raised that much money legally, bruh, and you sitting there with a stack about this big up to your head talking about, that's the technology of control, because we're not understanding how it manipulates us such that we do things like tell on ourselves. But also when you have a people who've been marginalized, who've been undereducated, miseducated, stripped of their culture, don't have a sense of belonging, you then throw something out there for them like the metaverse, and what do they want to do? Here's my opportunity now to be somebody. And now I am somebody. So no matter what I'm doing, good, bad, or indifferent, I got to let the world know. And what happened? You snitching on yourself.
Brother Marcus, is social media, are we trained to the point where social media becomes its own Co-IntelPRO process or device, and we're not even aware of it?
So what they call it on Facebook, right? They call it a profile, right? So a profile used to be a file that the government puts together on you. You understand what I'm saying? They used to have a job. It used to be called a profiler.
Bong, love it. Keep going.
So when you ask this question, now all of your thoughts, everybody's immediate reaction is, oh, I have a thought. Let me go put that online. Okay. Oh, well, this is what I think. This is what I want to believe. And it gives people and I've seen this directly myself. It gives people an opportunity not just to connect, but it also gives people a way to get an insight into your mind, your character, and what might motivate you and direct you in certain areas and arenas. We have other issues as well that go even further than just with social media right now. We got a bill in the Senate right now that's in committee, which will basically be a digital ID system for online. They're trying to say that it's about helping you cut down on identity theft, but really what it is it's additional government overlay into all of your everything, right? Like it allows them to see all of your passwords, all of the websites, and everything that you view, and everything that's going on. And it's a really serious issue. We've got TikTok, we've got what else we got? We got TikTok, we got YouTube, we got all of these things, Snapchat, everything. All of them are being consistently monitored by different government alphabet organizations, be it the cyber, be it like law enforcement, FBI, whatever the case may be, CIA, whomever, DEI, not DEI. Dang it, right? DIA. There we go. Or whatever else. And what they're doing is they're putting together additional information on you and how you can be used or what level of a threat you might be. That's why we see these people say, oh, in New York State, they passed the law that they were trying to make go in, but it got repealed by the state Supreme Court, talking about they want to search your Facebook profile and stuff before you are able to own a firearm. That's ridiculous. Okay, that's ridiculous, because who is the person that they're putting in charge of that to decide on whether you are of good moral character or not, if they don't have the same personal values as you, or cultural values of you as you, or demographic or local values of you? It's concerning, to say the least.
Yes, sir. So we're back on this right here. We're back on modern COINTELPRO, and we just brought up the topic of social media. Does that give us an automatic conduit to become our, spill the beans on ourselves, essentially? And then, of course, be manipulated by common things like bells and whistles and likes and hearts, and be turned in any old direction that they want us to. And then, do they know our political stances? Do they know our cultural idioms? Do they know how we think, walk, act, etc.? And they're even going so far as to create a social credit system to do just that. They want to know it all.
Yes.
And what I
yes,
thought, and what I thought about it was the area where the social credit system is most prevalent right now, which is China.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The complex reality of China's social credit system, high-tech dystopian plot, or low-key incentive scheme. A dozen or so cities throughout the country are test beds for carrot and stick programs to encourage businesses and individuals to comply with existing rules. The efforts have been roundly condemned overseas as Orwellian, but for members of the public, the impact of the systems can vary. Your thought on China, or either one of you good brothers, your thoughts on China, the way that they're implementing this social credit system, and can it lead to, like you said earlier, Orwellian type of social activity? So, if anybody saw or read 1984, it wasn't just the thought police that came to get you. It could have been the average citizen snitching on you.
Yep.
And that would have made the thought police come get you. You guys' thoughts? I'm going to pull up this article and read this caption for you guys.
So,
real quick. Right.
So if you jaywalk, you'll get, in China, you'll get a little message to your phone, and it'll say, you have a social demerit, and we have billed you this much and taken it directly out of your account. They've got it where you've got to scan these IDs before you go into stores, into buildings and stuff like that. They've got it where they've even set up checkpoints in between neighborhoods in cities where you have to show your digital ID before you can leave your neighborhood or go into a different neighborhood. This is the direction that we're going. And with tying in all of your information, this is a complete corruption of your abilities to have any sense of freedom or autonomy as an individual. And it completely makes it so that you have to be reliant on the whims of the government, which are ever changing, and we know only serve the very elite class. And we need to be very, very active, honestly, on this issue, because it's in America right now. We've got the FedNow app that comes out allegedly in June, but it's already launched. We got the digital currency, the digital dollar coming out. We've got, like I was just talking about, the internet ID that they're pushing right now. We've got the international Vax Pass that's being pushed by the United Nations and the World Health Organization, which they've already unanimously voted on, okay, to adopt, which basically gives away our autonomy as individuals in our own country, which is a whole nother conversation. But it is a very, very scary world to live in right now, and we will have no freedom or privacy if we don't push back against this right now. Mazi?
Well, we got to understand that every time you fill out a form, every time you call AAA, data is being collected. That's just the world we live in. You can go right down to any public library, and if there's a piece of data of anything that you can think of that you want to know, I can guarantee you they can bring up that information for you. So, yeah, stuff is going on, man, and we got to be prepared. And everything the market said, man, stuff is happening around us, and we just got to understand that and understand how this stuff is affecting us.
Because America,
it plays into when we had the conversation about 15-minute cities. And, and in the Orwellian thing, it still talks about the technology of control and how you can control the population, because capitalism, socialism, totalitarianism, all that don't really work because individuals still have free will. But if you put them in a cage, an electronic cage, then you can really control the people.
I want to let you guys know what's going on, boots on the ground in Asia, particularly China, with their social credit system. So it says Yangqiang homes in eastern China heaves under a mountain of paper files. They were scattered on top of cabinets, piled on the water dispenser, and stacked up on her bed. The files were forms completed in her neat handwriting, records of laborious work she carries out as one of the 10 informant gatherers in her village, at the forefront of an experiment in social management, China's credit system. So there's no more need for a deceptive Co-IntelPRO if the people who America are indebted to are using information gatherers that walk around the street like the monitor in your school hallway, your elementary school hallway, collecting data to tattle on you. What do you guys think? What do you think of the information gatherers in China? And the way that
China has a way of rolling this stuff out, which will be different than the way in which it's done in the Western world, in particular in America, because America always attached an exploitive dollar to everything. So our system is definitely going to look different from theirs, because we believe in capitalism, and under capitalism, there is exploitation and greed, and that's their ethos. So it's going to be interesting on what it looks like compared to how they're doing it in China. There seems to be a certain level of civility and just control the massive amounts of people that live in China.
Well, there's a lot of favor going on in China in terms of this. So the information gatherers get their rent paid, they get their utilities paid, they get certain accoutrement afforded to them, luxury cars. They can take the bullet train, free of charge, all kinds of things, as long as they maintain their posture as an information gatherer. Go ahead, bro.
Just like in the Soviet Union back in the day. Certain people had certain status to do and get certain things. So it's gonna happen here, but once again, it's gonna be, I think, a little harsher, and that the people who will be the informants, I think, are going to be they're gonna be assholes.
They already are. We already got
them. And they're gonna be like the poor white guy during slave period, because as most people know, we only 13% of the population owned slaves. So what was the other 13%? The other 77% of the population doing? They were just poor white folk who really didn't have nothing going for themselves except for the fact that they weren't slaves in their minds. So what do? They started taking it out on the slaves in terms of their anger and their issues and their position in life. So it's going to be kind of the same thing all over again.
Yes, sir. Brother Marcus, what do you think about the China information gatherers? And if we're indebted to them, to the economy, do we start to see something similar happen right here in America?
We've already seen. We saw it, as I mentioned earlier, with the people turning in their neighbors over family gatherings during COVID. We saw it with them turning in people who were attending church. We've seen it with the government putting plants and telling people to inform on their neighbors if they're preppers or not. We've seen it with them trying to get people to inform on churches and their movements and stuff like that. We're seeing it right now. We're seeing it every single day. And it's becoming a greater and greater threat on a daily basis because people are so alone and they want to feel as though they're important or a member of some special important group. And those are the people who are largely going to take that up. Yes, Mazi.
That's an important thing. There are a lot of lonely people in America.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when this system comes about for those that are lonely, it gives them purpose.
Exactly. And that's going to be used largely against us as a whole, as a collective of society.
Yeah, man, because there's often the awkward one, the unpopular one, the one who's not cool, the one that doesn't have the social standing, that looks for the battery in their back through these subversive means. That becomes their purpose. That becomes the way that they can stand on their square, etc., etc., etc. Now, we're nearing the end of the show, and we don't have all the answers, but we do have the questions. And I'm glad I got two brilliant brothers on that could knock these things out, depending on, despite whatever side of the aisle they come on. Because there's no voice, it's your voice, your victory on the Real HD show, the higher discussion, and we appreciate you watching. Any solutions for this? Any remedies for this? If we don't, that's cool. We can continue to build and create remedy for this. We're glad that we had everybody tap in and join in on a conversation, whether through message, whether through viewership, or our brothers participating right now on the show. We need some women on the show. Come on, sisters, say it with your chest. Come on in, join the conversation.
So,
brother Marcus, last word on modern Co-IntelPRO, and we're gonna close it out. I'll give Brother Mozzie the last word, and then we'll get out of here.
So, what to do about this situation that we're in and the social credit score and everything that's coming? First of all, know who your elected officials are. Make sure that you're reaching out to them and you're expressing your displeasure and what you would prefer that they don't vote for specifically for state assembly, state senate, and congressional representatives and federal senate. These people are the people who are voting on these bills that are going to affect and impact your life every day. You also need to do your best to stay aware and privy to the bills that are going on. I know that that's easier said than done, but please, you can find bills that are on the state senate website, on the state assembly website, on the federal congressional website for both the Senate and the House of Representatives. And that'll give you a way to look into it. If you have C-SPAN, I know it's boring and dry, but check that out so you can be aware of what's going on. We've also got the ability to actually go and interact with our elected officials. So set up an appointment, set up a meeting, express your concerns with them. And honestly, I'm 5 seconds from really encouraging some serious level of action, because we are about at the point in the precipice in which we will not be able to push back against any of this stuff anymore. And every day it's getting more and more dire. So I encourage you all, stand up, speak up, and don't shut up. Take action. Y'all be blessed and be well.
Brother Mozzie, any enlightening thoughts on action words or action terms or movements for action based on the masterful way that Co-IntelPRO has metastasized its way into the 21st century, leading to what could be a diabolical social credit score for all of us?
Just know and understand the struggle is real. The struggle continues Tune into the Real HD, and we'll help you unravel it and help you to find solutions and resolutions to the things that are going on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're gonna have Baruch on the show. I'm working on that. I've had conversations with her to come on the show, and she's willing to do it, but I'm not sure how far she's willing to take her, how candid she's gonna be. Once we start jumping into the rabbit holes that we jump into. But you guys can look forward to that. Also, look forward to Mozzie's Black-tastic takes. Brother Mozzie has sent me so many videos, and it's so good. Sometimes they're YouTube shorts, sometimes they're not. We got to find a way to purpose those. That's good, healthy information. That's what we're about right here on the Real HD. Tune in on Monday when we have a Monday Madness Monday, and we talk about things that are coming up, things that happen between now and then, and information that can move you progressively into the rest of the 21st century. And as we always say before we leave, peace and walk with power. We'll see y'all on Monday.
Later.
Love on each other. Peace.